Ну что, читаем дальше. Сегодня читаем страницу 10. But we stopped at page 9, so that's where we're gonna start. Затем, собравшись с духом, он вошел в дом, внушая себе при этом, что ему ни в коем случае не следует ни о чем рассказывать жене. Okay, now let's take a look what we have in the English in the original. Trying to pull himself together, he let himself into the house. He was still determined not to mention anything to his wife. Again, in English, we have two sentences, and in Russian, the translator combined them into one. So let's take a look. So here we have собравшись с духом. Собравшись с духом, which literally means kind of having pulled oneself together, or having braced oneself for something difficult. And this is in the past tense, while in the original, we have trying in the process. Here we have more of the results, like he pulled himself together, and then he entered the house. So, собраться с духом is a great expression, and it does mean to pull oneself together. So literally getting together with the spirit. Because собраться means to get together. Например, мы собрались с друзьями, and дух is the spirit. So собраться с духом, as I said, it's a great expression. For instance, when we say, I need to pull myself together and do it. Мне нужно собраться с духом и сделать это. Part of this expression, so we can also use part of this expression and just say собраться. Мне нужно собраться, which can mean like I need to get ready, like get my things together, or мне нужно собраться can also mean like inside, like I need to pull myself together, I need to focus. So we also sometimes say соберись. In the same situations in which Americans say, come on, pull yourself together. Okay, so that's a great expression to know. Он вошел в дом, and the prefix в, of course, shows us that we're entering. And then we have внушая себе при этом. We didn't really have it in the original. I guess he was still determined. Okay, so the determination. Внушать себе. Внушать себе или кому-то, дательный, dative, means to convince oneself or somebody, to instill a belief, almost like hypnotize, like where you put the idea into people's minds. Like what propaganda does, она внушает идеи. So basically to persuade somebody to the point that these ideas become his or her ideas. So that's внушать себе. So внушая, we can see this я here, that means it's a gerund, like while persuading oneself. And then при этом means kind of like at the same time, or like while doing something else, при этом. Что ему ни в коем случае, ни в коем случае. Ни в коем случае. It's a great expression that means kind of like no way, in no situation, in no case, or basically under no circumstances. So, for instance, when parents leave their kids at home, they might say something like «Ни в коем случае не открывай никому дверь». Basically, you're not allowed to open the door to anyone under no circumstance. Ни в коем случае. That's a pretty strong expression. Or when you're trying to stop somebody from doing something, they're asking like, should I do it? Может быть, мне сделать это? And you're like, ни в коем случае. Like, no way, don't you do it. Okay, Что ему ни в коем случае, look, under no circumstances, не следует ни о чем рассказывать жене. Okay. Для миссис Дурсель этот день был, как всегда, весьма приятным. Hopefully something simple here too, yeah. Mrs. Dursley had a nice normal day. So that's basically it, yeah. And just like here the translator read it как всегда, as always. Весьма, you already know that it's a synonym to очень. And remember that when we have the verb to be switch into past tense, or if we have the verb to be in the infinitive, like быть красивым, быть хорошим, we switch the adjectives or nouns into instrumental. So, день был приятным. Окей. За ужином она охотно рассказала мистеру Дурслю о том, что у их соседки серьезные проблемы с дочерью. И напоследок сообщила, что Дадли выучил новое слово «хочу», as in like I want. Okay, давайте посмотрим. Let's take a look at the original. She told him over dinner all about Mrs. Next Door's problems with her daughter and how Dudley had learned a new word, won't. Okay, so, okay, let's take a look. So, за ужином actually is a great expression. За ужином. And that means over dinner. Like over the period of the meal. And here we also can say за обедом, over lunch, за завтраком, over breakfast. And that comes basically from the expression за столом. За столом, which basically means while eating. Yeah, while eating, like sitting down at the table. So за столом мы разговаривали о том, как прошел наш день. So while eating, we were talking about how our day went. And there is a very interesting word, охотно. Охотно. And it kind of comes, so the stem of this word comes from the word охота, which means the hunt. And охотно means eagerly. Is that how you spell it? Eagerly or with pleasure. So something like if somebody tells you, do you want to do something with me today? Хочешь, мы сегодня пойдем на каток? And you can say, oh, да, с удовольствием, with pleasure. Or you can say, охотно, which means exactly the same thing. It's a little bit kind of like dated as a word, but you still can use it. Now, we still use this word in colloquial speech as a synonym to мне хочется, which is like I feel like. So instead of that, you can say мне охота. So I'm sorry, I misspoke. We don't use this specific word, but like the word охота kind of has the same meaning, like I would like to do something. So мне охота literally is like to me the hunt, but that's just an expression that we learn as an idiom. Мне охота сходить в кино сегодня. And what we use even more is that мне не хочется. Мне не охота. Мне неохота сегодня идти на работу. Like, I don't feel like going to work today. Так неохота. I so don't want to do it. You probably, and again, this is more colloquial, and it doesn't mean that you will not be doing it. You're just talking about your feelings and emotions. Like, you don't feel like doing, ох, так неохота. Окей. Что у их соседки серьезные проблемы с дочерью. И напоследок, at the end, сообщила, told him that Dudley выучил новое слово. Okay, so here the translator meant the хочу, like I want. Here we have won't. And I would say, being the mom, kids, when they say хочу, like as in хочу something, that's not the problem. But what the problem for the parents is when the kid learns the word не буду, which literally means I won't. And that's basically exactly what we have here, won't. Okay, well, let's keep reading. Мистер Дурсель изо всех сил старался вести себя как обычно. Mr. Dursley tried to act normally. So kind of the same, but the translator added изо всех сил. So, изо всех сил is a great expression, which basically in English it's something like with like all might, or with everything you have, or as hard as possible, kind of like that. And I would say it's not used as often in in English, but изо всех сил is a pretty common expression in Russian. Like, я изо всех сил пыталась ему объяснить, like really try to explain to him. Or я изо всех сил бежала за автобусом. I was running after the bus, you know, so fast. Изо всех сил literally means out all of my power. Okay. Okay, and вести себя, you remember, is to behave. Когда миссис Дурсель уложила Дадли в кроватку, мистер Дурсель поцеловал его, пожелал спокойной ночи и пошел в гостиную включить телевизор. When Dudley had been put to bed, he went into the living room in time to catch the last report on the evening news. Okay, so here everything is pretty straightforward. I just want to note that all of the verbs in this sentence are perfective verbs because the context calls for something done, 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 done. And then he went, done, to complete an action. So all of these verbs are perfective verbs. Oh, I think, let me see. Okay, so here we have the next sentence is already built into this was. In time to catch the last report on the evening news. По одному из каналов как раз заканчивались вечерние новости. So, yeah, pretty straightforward. Like, evening news were ending precisely at that moment on one of the channels. So, как раз actually is also a very good expression. Как раз, and that means something like just in time for something, or precisely at the moment. Например, a husband or like a wife calls the husband and says, hey, can you pick up bread on the way home? Можешь заехать в магазин купить хлеба? And he might say, о, я как раз недалеко от магазина. Oh, I'm actually right next to the store right now. Like, как раз, at this exact moment, I'm right next to the store. Okay, let's keep reading. И в завершение нашего выпуска о странном поведении сов по всей Англии. And finally, bird watchers everywhere have reported that the nation's owls have been behaving very unusually today. So basically, in conclusion of our broadcast, and then there's nothing there in Russian, yeah, but basically, let me tell you about strange behavior of the owls all across England. So, по всей, that's, I guess, the only, like, по всей, and here we have Англии, here we can say по всей стране, all across the country, по всей России, all across Russia, по всему миру, all across the world, like something is happening. Хотя совы обычно охотятся ночью и практически никогда не показываются днем, сегодня поступали сотни сообщений от людей, которые с самого рассвета в разных точках страны видели беспорядочно летающих сов. Okay. Although owls normally hunt at night and are hardly ever seen in daylight, there have been hundreds of sightings of these birds flying in every direction since sunrise. That's pretty much verbatim, I would say. So с самого рассвета, do we have that? Yeah, since sunrise, летающих, flying in every direction, and again, летающих. If you're watching my videos, you know that this book has a lot of participles, and use shows us the active present tense participle. Okay, so here I would say everything is pretty straightforward in this part. Experts are unable to explain why the owls have suddenly changed their sleeping pattern. I don't know why I read English first, so let's go back to Russian. Специалисты не могут объяснить, почему совы решили изменить свой распорядок дня. Okay, experts are unable to explain why the owls have suddenly changed their sleeping pattern. Yep, that's pretty much it. Тут диктор позволил себе ухмыльнуться. The newscaster allowed himself a grin. Yep, pretty straightforward. Очень загадочно. Most mysterious. А теперь я передаю слово Джиму МакГаффину с его прогнозом погоды. I'll just read the whole thing. Как ты думаешь, Джим, не будет ли сегодня вечером новых дождей из сов? And now over to Jim McGuffin with the weather. Going to be any more showers of owls tonight, Jim? Okay, very, very straightforward. The only thing that I can focus on is probably the word li. Just to remind you what li does. Li means whether or if to retell somebody's question that didn't have the question word. So here we have не будет ли сегодня вечером новых дождей из сов. So the question in the newscaster's mind is будут дожди из сов? Will there be raining owls tonight? So when he is basically retelling the question that he has in his head to Jim, he's saying не будет ли дождей из сов? So here we added the не, I guess the question was like, будут дожди из сов или не будет дождей из сов? And once we're negating something, having something, the same as like, у меня есть учебник, у меня нет учебника. We switch to genitive plural, which means there is no subject of the sentence, so this changes into a no form. So here we have the subject and here we don't. So, and we're retelling this question by adding li. So it's like, if there will be / won't be raining owls tonight. So let me give you like a simple questions. Ты сегодня придешь? Will you come over tonight? So it's one person asking another person. Like, will you stop by? Will you come over tonight? Now, if we are retelling this question to another person, yeah, for instance, mom asked the son, like, hey, what did you ask your friend? And the son will say, I asked him if he's gonna come over tonight, if he's gonna stop by tonight. So to retell this question to her, he will focus on the main kind of part of the question, which is, will you come over or not? So if he can say, I asked, я спросил, and let's call this guy John, Джона, придет ли он сегодня? Да? Придет ли он сегодня? And then let's say the question was, ты сегодня придешь? Or, for example, tomorrow. So here, ты сегодня придешь? The question is, will you come over? Will you come over today? Or not come over? Ты сегодня придешь или не придешь? At the same time, we can, with the intonation, we can ask, ты сегодня придешь или завтра? And in this case, Lee will follow the word that's emphasized. Я спросил Джона, сегодня ли он придет? Actually, we'll have a separate video on transforming direct speech into indirect on my channel in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so, okay, let's keep reading. Не знаю, Тед. На экране появился метеоролог. Однако сегодня не только совы вели себя необычно. Well, Ted, said the weatherman, I don't know about that, but it's not only the owls that have been acting oddly today. I'd say very, very straightforward translation. Наши зрители из таких отдаленных уголков Англии, как Кент, Йоркшир и Данди, звонили мне, чтобы сообщить, что вместо дождя, который я пообещал вчера вечером, у них был настоящий звездопад. Okay, let's take a look. Viewers as far apart as Kent, Yorkshire and Dundee have been phoning in to tell me that instead of the rain that I promised yesterday, they've had a downpour of shooting stars. Again, pretty, pretty straightforward. Here we have отдаленные уголки. So отдаленный уголок, it's something like a remote area of the country or area that's far away from the center, while in the original, it just means that these areas are far apart from each other. Really doesn't really change anything for the storyline. Just want to point it out. Okay. And then настоящий звездопад, like real downpour of shooting stars. So that's pretty good. Возможно, кто-то устраивал фейерверки по случаю приближающегося праздника. And actually, let me finish reading it. So we'll be done with his quote. Хотя до праздника еще целая неделя. А что касается погоды, сегодняшний вечер обещает быть дождливым. Okay, let's finish reading the original. Perhaps people have been celebrating bonfire night early. It's not until next week, folks, but I can promise a wet night tonight. So here we have just a little bit, the translation kind of like talks a little bit about different things, but overall it's a pretty straightforward translation. So here we have, возможно, perhaps, кто-то устраивал фейерверки. So устраивать фейерверки. So устраивать фейерверки, it's more like organize fireworks. And here we have, what do we have here? Bonfire night, celebrating bonfire night. So this must be some kind of a holiday or a celebration. So here устраивать фейерверки is to organize. So there is a word that, like for launching fireworks, we actually say запускать. Запускать фейерверки. It's still a very good translation for what we have here. I just want to point out a different word. Запускать фейерверки is to launch fireworks. It's the same word we use for запускать ракеты в космос. Да, запускать, что еще? Новое производство. Like in factories, when they start new manufacturing line, you can say запустить новое производство or запустить продукт в производство. Okay, по случаю, that's kind of like semi-official way of saying on the occasion of whatever the event is. По случаю, so officially, for instance, по случаю твоего дня рождения, хочу сказать тебе, on the occasion of your birthday, I want to tell you, so you can hear it's a little bit kind of like official. По случаю приближающегося, I'll just put it in the nominative, приближающийся праздник. So приближаться is to approach, kind of like both like in physical, like a person is approaching something, and like when a day or a specific date is приближается. So here we have приближающийся, and again, this is an active participle. We see it in the use. So, and here we can say приближающийся экзамен, the upcoming exam, or приближающиеся выходные, the upcoming weekend. Хотя до праздника еще целая неделя. There, what did he say it? So in English we have it's not until next week. And in Russian, that's a good translation. We just say еще целая неделя. So целый, for example, целый день, the whole day. Целая неделя, the whole week. So we say we have a whole week before something else happens. Целый месяц, целый год. Okay, что касается погоды, with regards to the weather, so this is added by the translator. Сегодняшний вечер обещает быть дождливым. And here we have, so we have the present tense context, but we have the verb быть, like because it's обещает, it promises to be. Usually we don't use the to be in the present tense, but once we do, once we use it in the infinitive, we switch to instrumental after it. Обещает быть дождливым, обещает быть солнечным, and so on. Okay, so let's stop here and let's reread this page from the beginning till the end. Затем, собравшись с духом, он вошел в дом, внушая себе при этом, что ему ни в коем случае не следует ни о чем рассказывать жене. Для миссис Дурсель этот день был, как всегда, весьма приятным. За ужином она охотно рассказала мистеру Дурслю о том, что у их соседки серьезные проблемы с дочерью. И напоследок сообщила, что Дадли выучил новое слово «хочу». Мистер Дурсль изо всех сил старался вести себя, как обычно. Когда миссис Дурсель уложила Дадли в кроватку, мистер Дурсель поцеловал его, пожелал спокойной ночи и пошел в гостиную включить телевизор. По одному из каналов как раз заканчивались вечерние новости. И в завершение нашего выпуска о странном поведении сов по всей Англии. Хотя совы обычно охотятся ночью и практически никогда не показываются днем, сегодня поступали сотни сообщений от людей, которые с самого рассвета в разных точках страны видели беспорядочно летающих сов. Специалисты не могут объяснить, почему совы решили изменить свой распорядок дня. Тут диктор позволил себе ухмыльнуться. Очень загадочно. А теперь я передаю слово Джиму МакГаффину с его прогнозом погоды. Как ты думаешь, Джим, не будет ли сегодня вечером новых дождей из сов? Не знаю, Тед. На экране появился метеоролог. Однако сегодня не только совы вели себя необычно. Наши зрители из таких отдаленных уголков Англии, как Кент, Йоркшир и Данди, звонили мне, чтобы сообщить, что вместо дождя, который я пообещал вчера вечером, у них был настоящий звездопад. Возможно, кто-то устраивал фейерверки по случаю приближающегося праздника, хотя до праздника еще целая неделя. А что касается погоды, сегодняшний вечер обещает быть дождливым. Okay, this is where we stop and we'll continue next week.